Welcome back to another episode of the Rock of Truth podcast. Nick Statterman, Jake Sopko, Joe Metzger here. Before we get started, word from our sponsor, Danco Transmission Auto Care. That's it. That's all you need to know. Go in there, car needs, get a discount. Tell them Statty sent you. Boys, how bad is our men's basketball team right now?
They stink. Joe, I'll let you get into the analytical part of it. I'm going to be honest with you guys. This is probably one of the only games that I watched this year, which is not a good thing to say when you're hosting a podcast about Bearcat sports, but I watched it. I bet on them. I had all faith because they were rolling. You guys were telling me how great they are, and I watched it, and they stunk.
I never told you to bet on them. I
Didn't say they were great.
I would have told you not to bet on them. If you would have listened to the Bearcat Journal nightcap the night before, Aaron would have told you specifically not to bet on them, to stay away from it. Right, Aaron?
This is accurate. I put 5 on it just to have money on it, but I did not put 50 on it like I did against Hofstra.
Now, I mean,
Aaron got 5 on it.
Let's be honest. I mean,
he's got 5 on it.
Yes.
Let me hear it, Joe, man.
Okay.
Aaron's got 5 on it.
Big. I mean, let's be honest, Sop. Like you have a point, right? Like you can watch that team play, and like I know when we were in college, so that was probably the last time you probably really watched Bearcat basketball was when Mick was here, right? When Coach Cronin was here, was that the last time?
That's debatable, but I was really into it when I was in college, so I'd watch like every game. But that's when I really had like a deep understanding of the roster of like the whole.
I mean, that's when you think about Bearcat basketball, though. That's what you think about.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of tough, athletic, just
good
defensive players that right. Like you're not going to be getting dunked on.
I'm thinking
by Utah Valley. Right,
like Trey Scott's dropping like 25, and like Jaron Cumberland's hitting deep threes.
Well, even Nasir Brooks, even guys like that. Like, I mean, I remember I told this last night to Statty and Sopko, and people are going to probably be mad at me on here, but ultimately, like, if you had the choice between Nasir Brooks right now and Victor Lockton, who are you taking going into the Big 12? Like, for me, like, I like Vic. I think he can be really good. I know Statty doesn't. I think he can be really good. But my thing with that comparison was going in next year, we need interior post protection at the rim. You're going to need someone who can play physical down low in the post and not get bullied around. And for me, it would be an easy choice to say, I'd rather take Brooks into the Big 12. Now, I'm not trying to bash anyone here. I'm just saying that was a hypothetical conversation we had last night. And so I get where you're coming from. For someone who has never watched this year for the most part, like turning it on last night, it can be kind of frustrating watching a team that I've never heard of before be more athletic and just be straight up better in a lot of ways. And I know fans are going on and on. If we played at home, this would have happened and that would have happened. Are you serious? Is that really what we're going to go with right now is, if we played at home, we would have won. Like we're playing Utah Valley. Like we're the University of Cincinnati. Like we always talk about our 2 national championships, our 6 Final Fours, all this bull crap. Like if we're going to talk about that, we better be about it. That's what for me gets me frustrated and fired up is as a program, we're trying to build something. And I think he's doing a good job. I think he's going to build it. Now I think he needs to have some tough conversations here in the next few days. And in my opinion, there needs to be some tweets coming out that I'm entering the transfer portal. I mean, if we're being honest, I don't know if we'll see that or not, but I'll say, they got better this year throughout the year, and they did about as good as they could in a lot of ways with a limited roster, in my opinion. Now, I don't know how you guys are feeling, Statty. I know you watched a few games towards the end of the year. You probably have a better read now on what you feel and how you're thinking compared to when you weren't watching before. So I'd like to hear from you, really. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, I don't care if it's off for mine. I just want to hear what you're thinking.
I mean, it's just so hard to even grasp where we're at. And, you know, Wes has got he's got the second or third most wins and as a head coach or something like that over in their first 2 seasons or something. And I think that's just kind of like it looks good on paper, but if you really think about it, like how bad the American Athletic was this year, I mean, it's so bad. Like the conference is just really down as a whole. And I just don't like we had enough talent with maybe two guys that's why we were able to win some games, but we didn't play tough teams. Our wins weren't against good teams. We beat the teams that Cincinnati's supposed to, and we even barely beat them. I think I agree with you. The roster needs flipped on its head. We had two guys shoot 49 shots, and I think they made a total of 18.
That's true.
That's a problem. I mean, I'm not even kidding you, dude. When the first possession of the ball,
16
for 49, and then what?
16 to 49.
What was the threes? I know one.
Who
six.
was this? Who was it that shot 16 for 49 again?
Nolly and DeJulius. Our two stars, our two guys that we praise. They were 5 of 17 from 3.
Like, give it up. Give it up.
They were missing like layups at the end of it.
And, you know, it's bad. Like, dude, oh my gosh. It was literally the first possession of the game. I'm like, holy shit, this isn't going to go well. Lock-in does 3 pivot foots in a circle and then isn't even really getting guarded and does like a Dirk fadeaway, and it barely grazes the rim. And I'm just like, all right, here we go. We're at it early. And I know I'm hard on the guy. I'm hard on the kid. I hope he's a good kid. I hope he does well for the community. But gosh, damn, dude, he's a liability on the freaking basketball court. Liability. Like getting absolutely bullied left and right. Every game.
On the real, I will say this. Okay, because I'm very much like a defender of Vic in a lot of ways, right? But like, let's be honest with what we're going up against next year. Like he, in my opinion, after watching the last few games, I know he's been hurt, but it's more so even the whole entire body of work throughout the year. Crap. Like whenever we play like great levels of competition, whether it be like a Memphis or a Houston, whatever it may be, it's the biggest thing for me is I watch those games and being able to sit back and go, okay, who disappears in these moments? Because we have players that disappear in those moments, and there's a lot of them that disappear in those moments. And next year, every single game you play in the Big 12, besides when you play Central Florida, is going to be games where you have the ability to disappear because of how good they are. And so for me, that's what bothers me is like,
and Joe,
I think we're capable of getting dudes in the portal and winning next year. My thing is college basketball has completely changed. The entire landscape has completely changed. Jerome Tang just took Kansas State to the Elite Eight, and he had 2 scholarship players on the roster when he took the job because ultimately he could recruit because of the Big 12 and because of the brand that is Kansas State. And so I'm not saying Wes has to get to the Elite Eight next year. I'm not even saying he's got to make the tournament. I'm just saying let's make some strides in the portal to try and get better. Let's try and look at our roster and really be honest about where we're at and where we need to go to. That's my request.
I just wanted to point out real fast that, Chad, you got your volume on the TV on, by the way. I just wanted to point out that Vic did have a double-double.
Yes.
With 10 and 10, as you guys
How many minutes did he play?
I just wanted to drop that he did have a double-double.
Like double-doubles are easy. Everybody gets them if they play a lot of minutes.
And I just wanted to say that it's really hard to recruit somebody to play 1 year in the AAC. Like that.
100%. That's where I've been.
Football, basketball, whatever.
Hey, hold on. Joe Met. Here you go. Vic Locken, Arizona, 17 points, 5 rebounds. Ohio State, 12 points, 4 rebounds. Xavier, 16 points, 8 rebounds. First game against Houston, 16 points, 6 rebounds. First game against Memphis, 22 points, 10 rebounds. UCF, 20 points and 8 rebounds. And then he got hurt.
Got hurt. I know
No,
that.
You just said in the biggest of games he doesn't show up. That is factually
Chad, you got to play
incorrect.
both ends of the floor. You have to play both ends of the floor. You can't just play one end of the floor. I love seeing rebounds and scoring. He's got to be able to guard Big 12.
Defense is the other end. Defense is another end of the floor.
Can he guard people in the Big 12 next year? I'm talking about the whole body of work.
Yes.
I really worry about him. I want him back. I like him. I just don't know if he can be our main guy at the 5 spot next year if you want to win in the Big 12.
I vehemently disagree. And you said he didn't show up in the biggest games against the biggest opponents. I just rattled off the biggest opponents.
And
he was one of the 2 best players on the floor for this team in all of the big games.
Well, they go. I mean, first off, they go to him a ton. They go to him a ton.
No, they don't. They never throw the ball in the post. It's a jump shooting team. They throw it to him in the pick and roll.
Chad, do you really believe he can guard Big 12 bigs next year?
Yes.
You know what I see?
Do you really believe he wasn't effective in any of the biggest games of the year? You just put that on wax, Joe Met. You put it on wax. In the biggest games of the year, Victor Larkin can't perform. I just read the biggest games of the year. He performed in all of them.
Here's my problem. Okay.
And then he got hurt.
But we keep defending this guy and that guy and this guy and that guy. We don't win. We're 4 years out of the NCAA tournament. We don't get the tournaments anymore.
You're putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Well, I never said I wanted him gone. I never said I wanted him off the roster. I just want him to have a different role.
You said he doesn't play well in the biggest games, and he does.
I'll admit when I'm wrong. I'm wrong there. He played well, and I'm not saying he played wrong. Well,
in all of them until he got hurt. And then he tried to play through it.
Right.
Statty, you're a football player. You're going to criticize a guy for trying to play through an injury?
Yeah, because he's a liability out there.
I'm not saying that, Chad. All I'm saying.
And we're forced to play him 34 fucking minutes.
How about
they don't want to do that. Like in a perfect world, he plays 23, 25 minutes a game.
How about
they have to go get more bigs? They have to go get another big.
He played
35 minutes.
22 minutes last night.
I will say this, Chad. I will say
felt
this.
like he was out there for 4 hours.
I am probably being a little harsh on him because of recency bias.
You're frustrated. That's fine.
Yes, because he's been hurt, and I have to remind myself he's been hurt. Also, you got to remember now, you and Statty had this argument about Victor a couple weeks ago, and I was on your side for the most part. But then over the last few games, he hasn't played very well, and Statty's been texting me all these messages. Ask Soppy. He's texting me "Hey, Joe Matt, you watching Victor?"
He's trying to turn you against me.
It's getting in my head a little bit.
What drives me nuts, it's a game that we absolutely blew them out. And I go back to it over and over again with this kid, was senior night. I have never seen a kid who, you're right, Chad, for this basketball team this season, not the program as a whole, but for this season, he meant a lot because we have no other option other than to play. But this man literally was walking off the floor, being a mental head case and putting himself in front of his team and his teammates because, I'm not getting my 22 minutes and feeling sorry for himself. And I can't respect that. I can't defend that. And then you go on.
Did you ask him if that's what he was thinking?
Maybe
it's just a kid that's frustrated because he's not playing as well up to the standard that he thinks he should play.
I don't give a shit. Run your ass off the floor when you're subbed out. Don't hang your head down. Don't not high-five your fucking teammates as you walk to the bench. Who cares? Do the little shit right.
I'll tell you what. Whether he's the problem or he's not, coming from your guy who has watched very little college basketball this season, okay, right? I'm that guy. I'm the token fan who doesn't watch any college basketball, and then I watch every single NCAA tournament game, and I act like I know what I'm talking about. I watched every single NCAA tournament game so far. I watched the Bearcat game last night. Any team in the Big 12 would demolish the team that I watched play Utah Valley or Utah State or whoever the hell it was.
That's not right.
I just watched Kansas State.
Kansas State's going to go to the Final Four. Did you watch Oklahoma State the game before get their ass kicked by UAB?
I think
UAB.
I think Princeton would beat UC by 25. to be honest.
You guys
know, they would.
You guys know.
Stop.
The
They would
scene.
stop. Honestly, like on the real.
Hold on.
I will say this about next year in the Big 12. If they took this current roster in the Big 12 next year, they could play with Iowa State, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech. They could play with those teams.
West Virginia was a tournament team.
West Virginia would run us off the floor so fast.
They don't have like that many dynamic playmakers. They're good, but we can. That's like the same thing. I'm not saying we'd beat them, but we'd play with them. We wouldn't get ran off the floor by those guys.
I strongly disagree.
And you know what? I'm coming out hot and making these claims, but like I'm telling you,
no. But you're talking about your
Kansas State team that I watched compared to the team that I watched last night. Like it's a whole different.
It's fair for you to say that. Now, here's my thing.
What's unfortunate is I don't
have like high level background information to back that statement up.
How much
so people can like disclaim that? I'm just saying eye level test. Watching this team and watching that team.
And it's unfair because how much of our guys really gave a shit about playing Utah Valley in the NIT quarterfinal or whatever the hell it was?
I felt like they played hard last night. I just felt like the other team was better.
Utah Valley's nice, man.
They're not bad. Utah Valley's not a bad team.
They only lost 3 games all year. Like,
let's not mistake.
That's impressive.
Let's not mistake the fact that they're actually not bad. They're a pretty good basketball team. Now, I'm surprised they weren't in the NCAA tournament.
I'm not saying that UC wasn't playing hard. I didn't get that vibe. I just got the vibe that they weren't very good.
Yeah. No, I didn't think they were very good last night. All I'm saying is this, okay? Bottom line, I think we all agree with this. I hope. I think we got some good players on our team. I think there's pieces that even maybe a lot of people don't want to come back that could come back in maybe a different role. But my thing is like ultimately we need like 3 or 4 portal additions, big time portal additions. And I think we can get that, but it's going to take time here. So we'll know more in the next few weeks about what's going to happen with the program and what the team's going to look like for next year. But I will say, like, I think a lot of anger and frustration is starting to come out because I think we just want to win. I know I want to win, but also I'm not the one coaching. Joe, I'm not the one playing. I'm just a fan.
And that you're right on that, but we also like we didn't want to be NIT champions. Like I don't want that I don't want to be Xavier and hang a banner that says that shit. But we also got guys that are just chucking the ball into the third row on a simple pass to the corner. We got dudes chucking the ball over the backboard, just throwing it over the backboard. It just was so unbelievably embarrassing what was on the floor.
I get it.
And you brought up a good point.
They didn't play well.
You brought up a good point that Skillings is getting his ass reamed for letting up one backdoor cut. Meanwhile, where's everything else when they're getting 5 offensive rebounds per possession? Like,
well, I said, I know we talked about that last night. I think I loved him getting on Skillings for giving up the backdoor cut. I just feel like we've got other dudes on the team that do that a lot. And, but also Dan is one of West's guys. That's one of the guys West recruited. And so we got to think like, he wants the dude he recruited that could be really, really special because Dan Skillings can be really flipping good. And we got to see some glimpses of him towards the end of the year where you're just like, wow. He looks like he could play in the NBA one day. But
you also know this, Joe Matt. Dan is one of those guys that a coach can get on, and Dan doesn't take it personally. Yeah. And coaches know when you have that guy, you can get on him, and it sets an example to everybody else. And Dan is not gonna pout, gonna sulk.
Well, you know what?
Gonna slink off the floor and not give his teammates high fives. That's why Wes can coach him like that.
I went to a practice like a month ago, Chad, and he was screaming at Dan at practice. And I'm telling you, he played hard at practice. Like he took the coaching. He did exactly what Wes told him to do. And that's probably part of the reason, Chad, why I loved Kalu so much towards the end of the year. Like Kalu's not the greatest. Kalu was not the best portal addition we could have had. But let's be honest. Kalu accepted his role, did whatever coach asked him to do. There were moments where there were moments where coach would pull him, and you can tell how much these guys love him. Like, and so for me, I think and I want to hear your thoughts on this. Like, I personally believe, and maybe you don't, but I personally believe there needs to be a few tough conversations that need to be had here in the next few weeks. And as a coach myself, I think people think it's so easy for him to just sit down and have these tough conversations. It is not as easy as it looks when you develop real meaningful relationship with some of these guys. And so I'm a little bit worried that those tough conversations might not happen, but I also
they have to. They have to. At the end of the day, you're there to win basketball games.
There's going to be 2 spots open, maybe 3. If you're thinking there's going to be 4 or 5 spots open, it's not going to happen.
It's not. I agree with that, and it doesn't need to be that way. There's guys there's a lot of guys on this team who just maybe need a different role on next year's team, and maybe they have the same role. I don't know. But I will say he's got he's got great relationships with his guys, and that means a lot to him. So, and I know, people are going to be like, your job's to do this, this, and this. But I mean, in today's day and era where the transfer portal, people just jump from spot to spot to spot, it is important to have relationships with your guys. So, you just have to hope in certain standpoint when it comes to that down the line, that's really going to pay off for us.
You also have to pay attention to the message you're sending to the rest of your guys.
Yes.
Because right now in the transfer portal era, you can, because of what you do and say to the back end of the roster, have a significant impact on the top of your roster, because those guys all now have mobility. They can say, this isn't the guy who he said he was.
Yeah.
Because of the way he handled my best friend. Because of the way now if, Fickle mishandled a couple of your best friends that were on the roster, Soppy, it could have had, or if he mishandled you, it could have had an impact on the guys that you're close with, looking at him and going, this guy isn't who he says he is. Like, I don't know that I have the trust in him that I thought I did, because he treats me this way because I'm a top of the roster guy, but he treated Soppy like shit when all Soppy did was go out there every day and give everything he had for the program and do everything that was asked of him. And because he wasn't the starter, the coaching staff shit on him. And that impacts the way I see the coaching staff. Like, there are a lot more layers than people realize, especially in basketball with only 13 guys.
Yeah.
But Chad, when somebody's on their way, when somebody's,
of course you do,
it's going to be on their way out, or
of course you do. The team
the relationship's not there. So,
but if you're telling everybody one thing, and then they have a closed door meeting with Soppy and say, "Bro, you got to go. Like, you don't got to go home, but you got to get the hell out of here." And Soppy goes back to the house, and he's like, "Man, he handled that like fucked up. Like, I didn't think it was like that."
Well, then Soppy's not taking care of his chicken. I don't know. That's a Soppy.
Well, no, I think I agree with you, Statty, that like most of the time you do know, but I completely agree with Chad too. That's a very real thing. I mean, I've seen that on both sides. It's like a pretty crappy situation. I've seen it as a player and I've seen it as a coach. Like it is very real. Like if you want to drive somebody out of your program, you very well can. And it's like it's a tough thing, because it's a very difficult situation, because you got to do what's best for your team. You also got to do what's best for the kid. But then you also, like Chad's saying, like other guys, we all talk, right? Everybody knows how everything goes down.
You know why the John Brandon thing fell apart? Is exactly that. Because he was telling one kid one thing in a meeting and telling another kid another thing when they would meet. And then those two kids would go back, and this was during COVID, so it was amplified by 1,000 because they were only allowed around each other. And one guy would say, well, this is what I got told today. And the other guy would say, well, like, he shit on you today when I had a meeting with him. And the other kid's like, well, he shit on you when I had a meeting with him. And now they're comparing notes, and the trust in what's being said is gone. And then you have a guy like Tari Eason who is like, I'm out of here no matter what. Well, guess what? How different is all of this if Tari Eason is a Bearcat last year? But because of how messed up all the relationships were, that kid never really gave Cincinnati a chance and was out the door before Wes even really was able to sell him on staying. So that's what I'm getting at is the relationships were messed up, and they were messed up with people that Tari was closest to.
Yeah.
And Tari looked at that situation and said, whether these guys stay or not, I'm not getting back into this. And then he was gone.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't there there was also recruits that were coming to visit, and kids on the team were telling them, you don't want to come here, man. You don't want to be here.
I mean, I've never been told that specifically, but that wouldn't
surprise you.
It wouldn't shock me because it was toxic. Because of what I just said, there was no trust from the roster up the food chain.
Yeah.
So when that happens, when you lose that trust, and that's why Wes gets paid the big bucks. He has to navigate that. But it's okay to talk about these are the things you have to consider when you're dealing with this. You go in and you tell player X that you got to go. Sorry, you've given X amount of years and X amount of starts and X amount of time and blood, sweat, and tears to this program, but you got to kick rocks. He goes back and everybody's like, what just happened? Well, my loyalty, I stayed. I should have left. I could have gone and done better for myself 2 years ago. And I was rewarded by telling to get lost. And then they go into their meeting. And now they're like, and the coach is kissing their ass. And they're like, well, I don't believe you because this guy was told this. And now there's a trust disconnect. That's coaching in the transfer portal era.
Yeah.
Are there moves that have to be made? Absolutely. Is it as easy as it sounds? Because everybody now thinks it's a video game. This guy's cut, that guy cut. It's Madden. Well, this guy's only a 72, so he's got to go, and we're going to bring in this guy that's an 84. But there's real people involved in it. And it's not just I make this decision and it has no consequences to the rest of that locker room. And you have to be cognizant of that because you have the top of your roster, you have to keep intact because that's what's going to keep this team potentially afloat, sink or swim next year. Yeah. Do you need to go get another player or two to add to the top of this roster? Absolutely. Absolutely. But just throwing a pipe bomb into everything puts you at a very serious risk of what's been built over the past 2 years. So do I think there's going to be 2 spots open? Yeah. Maybe 3. If you think there's going to be 4, I think you're going to be disappointed because I just don't think that's the way that this is going to play out.
Yeah. I mean,
if there's 4, you got to remember this too. If it's 4, it might not be what you're thinking. And it might be one of those top of, one of those 1 through 3 guys that you're planning on for next year that now all of a sudden you're scrambling and trying to replace because things look good if you take Vic and Landers and you add back in John Newman and you have Dan Skillings take a jump and you add 2 guys to that 4 and now you got 6 and then you have Odie and potentially a Micah or Josh Reed or Sage. That looks pretty good. But 1 or 2 of those top line guys leave now because of the way things have been handled. Now you got to go get 4 top of the roster guys. And that's really hard in basketball. Yeah. It's really hard.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it's a lot easier said than done. And again, like I was saying before, I've been on both sides, but I've seen those conversations. I know how it works. So it's there's a lot that goes into it. And like you said, that's why Wes gets paid the big bucks. That's why the head coaches, because they got to navigate that. And it's not easy. But
you all right, Joe?
Quick sneak, baby.
Do you have any other parting thoughts on the Bearcat basketball season, Joe?
I'm excited. I'm excited for, honestly, I'm being serious when I say this. I know. I think it's fun. Like, for me, I felt like I, for the most part, have stayed pretty, like, in the middle emotionally for the season, right? Like, some people were just constantly a roller coaster. And I know, Chad's going to mess with me that I pay too much attention to Twitter. But there's so many people who are just up and down constantly on, like, we love Wes. We want Wes gone. Like, I'm on the Wes train. I think Wes is going to get the job done. It might take longer than people want it to, but he's going to get the job done. I have full confidence in that. And
what do you mean by get the job done?
Get us back to the NCAA. Like? Get us back to the NCAA tournament. For me, that's step one. Then we'll talk about step two down the line. But step one is getting us back into relevancy from a standpoint of playing in March, right? And I think that's what we all want. And then you can talk about the next steps after that. But you can watch, even watching this tournament, man, it's really hard to win in March. And there's a lot that goes into it. And there's a lot of luck. And there's a lot of players just making plays. Like Marquise Noel today, Soppy, you watched it. He's making plays. Like, when Coach Tang's on the sidelines and he knows he has a dude who can just make plays at any given time all the time, that helps him as a coach. And so oftentimes, like, for me, all it matters is Wes getting us back into the dance, and then we'll take it step by step. But it's not easy to make it into the dance. It really isn't. And so I think we took it for granted for way too long. I think that's why ultimately Coach Kern ended up at UCLA, because we had a lot of ungrateful fans. We had an athletic director that didn't obviously get it. And so for me, I am a huge believer. Honestly, it all goes back to me going to practice. I can tell by what a coach is when it comes to you guys know, attention to detail. Is he locked in? Are the players listening? Are they playing hard for him? Are they motivated? X's and O's, that kind of stuff. All of that goes into play. He had it all together at practice. And so for me, when I was there watching practice, I saw a guy who was passionate, fired up. He had great attention to detail. His players listened, they were focused, and they played hard for him. Like, for me, that's a recipe for success in the future, but we have to also admit you need dudes. And so I think he's a good recruiter. He's proven to us that he can recruit. But I think this is his first year. This is his first year going into the portal with the Big 12 helping him with the recruiting, right? Hard to recruit a kid to say, hey, come play Tulane twice a year. Come play Tulsa. Come play Wichita State. If you, me, any of us, like, especially me, if I wasn't a Bearcat fan, you couldn't convince me to come play in the American if I was a hometown Cincinnati kid. But if you're in the Big 12, heck yeah, sign me up. So it's going to be much different. And I think we're going to get a good idea of what's going to happen here in the next few months. But I do think we need to stay patient. I believe in him. And I think he's going to get the job done. I might have some different thoughts on what needs to happen to get it done, but I do think he's going to get it done no matter what he ends up doing. Ultimately, he's the coach. Chad's talking about these guys, they're people. It's a lot more complicated than you'd like it to be, and I get that. And so for me, like, I'm just coaching high school basketball. I don't have a clue of what it looks like or how it's done. The only thing I know is I went to a practice, I watched him do his thing, and I said, that guy can coach. And he's also proven he can recruit. The only thing he hasn't proven yet is if he can do it in the portal. And that's only because he kind of has his hands tied behind his back with what conference we're in. And a lot of portal guys, they want to be here for a year and go to the league, or they want to be here for a year to make money. A lot of them nowadays, a lot of them are not coming for, I want to be here for 3-4 years, coach. Not everyone's going to be like David DeJulius. I think a lot more guys are going to be guys who they want to get here, they want to play, they want to win, and they want to go to the league. They want to go make their money. And you can't blame them for that. But that's the reality of it. And the Big 12 is going to help you do that a lot more than the American is. So I think things are going to change. I have a good, positive outlook on it all. And we'll have to wait and see. It's hard for us to tell until it all kind of unfolds in front of us, if that makes sense.
All right. I like that. I like that breakdown. But before we jump into football and wrap up, I want your guys' pick for who's going to win the NCAA tournament. Just based on who you see, who's the best team in college basketball right now?
UConn's tough. I think Arkansas was overrated all year, but UConn's just a solid squad. They got guards. They've got a dominant big. They've got wings. They've got the whole deal. Passionate coach. I know Joe Met loves that guy. But if Sasser can get back right, I still think Houston is the team to beat.
I don't know.
You guys want to know my final 4 picks?
Yeah.
You guys, it's going to eat at me, but my final 4 picks are legitimately Alabama, UConn. Even though I think UCLA can beat UConn, I think that's going to be a really good game. Unless Gonzaga wins. Gonzaga can win tonight, but I think UCLA is going to win. But I think it's going to be UConn, Alabama, and then I think it's going to – I honestly – you guys are going to hate me for this. I think Xavier's going to somehow get there just with their guard play. I mean, I think if they beat Texas, they can legitimately beat Houston and get there. I genuinely think tomorrow night's game between them and Texas.
Goodbye. Aaron, thanks.
I don't want them to, but I try and be unbiased when it comes to like making my picks. I mean, I don't want them.
But they're supposed to blow out Pitt.
No, I agree. I don't think they played anyone, but that's part of it. Like there's something about them that just gets me so upset because like they just get like the easiest draw every year when they play in the tournament. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like they get the easiest. They'll get a great location. They'll get, the 11 seed will somehow win. You know how many years they made it to the Sweet 16 where they played a lower seed than them when they were supposed to play a higher seed? It happens almost every time they get to the Sweet 16. It's crazy to me. I mean, but anyway, forget that. But those are my 3. I think Alabama's going to win it all. I don't really know what to think on the other end. I
got the Aztecs.
Is it going to be? I think Kansas State will get there.
They're tough.
I've fallen in love with Kansas State, dude.
They're tough.
Money on them like every game, and they're just so fun to watch. That guard, Noel. I mean, he had 20 points and 19 assists, NCAA record tonight. He's unreal with the ball, dude. He's so fun to watch. He's like, what, 5'8" or
5'7",
whatever. I mean, unreal player. I've fallen in love with them. I don't know if they're going to be able to get it done. I think Bama is so good, and I think UConn is like a force to be reckoned with right now. But that's just what I'm thinking.
Those 2 are solid.
Statty, you were at the pro day today. I know we're probably not going to talk about it too much, but can you give us some thoughts on the UC Bearcats 2023 pro day that you attended?
Yeah. To begin with, I was actually really impressed with the Bengals, that facility. I mean, I'm comparing it to the bubble. That is the ugliest and grossest thing I've ever been inside before. But really nice. I think the surface played a big factor. Guys were slipping a lot. But all in all, it was fun to just kind of see the last wave of dudes that we got to be teammates with, go out there, compete, show off their talents again. As far as the football side of things went, I think everybody performed really well with the skill work. Again, testing was not bad. I think it was more of just the surface was a little uncomfortable for the guys. I know a couple of them were saying how soft it was, and walking around, I mean, you can visibly see big mounds and piles of pellets just there.
Is it a brand new turf?
Yeah, I mean, they put it in there in October, I think.
Oh, really?
So, and the Bengals maybe had 15 practices on it, so just not really broken in. again, surface. So, but no, it was good. Mike Vrabel was in there watching everybody. He was actually talking to a lot of family, parents, everything. That was cool to see. Representatives from, every team. It's just, it was cool. It's not the most exciting event.
Yeah.
It gets a little repetitive. And not having it as like the same vibe as it is on campus, I think also maybe played a factor. Because, like we used to pack the bubble in, right, on the pro days, and we'd have a lot of energy. We'd yell, hype up the guys. Like there was none of that. They had, the guest section was like a short L, maybe went from like the 30-yard line to a little bit behind the end zone. So it wasn't a very big. Yeah, I don't know. I think the change of location, tough surface, just had a weird vibe to it. But no, like I said, football wise, the guys still did well.
It's good to hear.
No.
Draft right around the corner.
Yeah, see what happens. See if the hometown hero Wiley will be another hometown Bengal.
You think he's going to stay with the Bengals?
That'd be kind of sick.
Who's going to be the highest pick? T. Scott?
Maybe.
I guess we'll find out on draft night.
I'm not really sure. That's a good question. I feel like it's either Wiley or Scott.
I would love the Bengals to take Josh Wiley. Really, the highest pick is going to be a day 2, right? Like a late day 2.
Yeah.
Unless like Nick Statterman gets drafted like round 1.
That'd be impressive for him.
What would you play? DN?
Tackle.
Offensive tackle.
An undersized tackle. They
Maybe a pulling guard.
He'd be a legend.
Put me at H.
We'll put Statty at left guard.
The Bengals are going to trade Jonah Williams for nothing to pick me.
For Nick Statterman's rent.
Future.
Apartment. So the players can live there.
Yeah.
You have to live at the facility and play guard for the Bengals.
That'd be terrible. Imagine being an offensive guard.
That would be tough. Before we kind of wrap this thing up, is there anything else that you guys wanted to bring up or touch on? No.
You kind of wanted.
You want to get off your chest?
You asked closing thoughts on Bearcat hoops season, and Joe gave us another 8.5-minute breakdown.
Yeah, could you give me maybe like a couple sentences, but like less than a minute?
I think we're due for a rude awakening, like you said earlier in the show. I think fans need to not have a very high bar set. And I'm really not nervous because I do trust Wes and I trust the coaching staff. Chad Dollar, friend of the pod, trust him.
Mm-hmm.
Just anxious. Because like Chad did mention, if there's only 2 or 3 roster changes, I just don't see I just don't see I don't know. I don't see much improvement.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they get it together. I was pretty hot coming into this pod because I won on Kansas State, but that game just had my heart going. I was pumped up. That was an awesome game. But yeah, hopefully they figure it out. It's tough. These teams are good teams, so hopefully they can bring in the right guys, make the right moves, can gel a little bit more, and we can have success in the Big 12. But as far as the pod moving forward, I know we're flirting with potentially moving it over to a different night, a different time. We'll keep the followers, the loyal Rock of Truthers, updated on Twitter.
Rots. The Rots.
Yeah. Do we have like a fan base name? Is that what it is?
The Rots.
The Jimmy Nipperts. The Rock of Truth. Joe, you love Jimmy Nippert. We don't need to get into that, but
James Gamble.
Legend.
James Gamble. But yeah, we're flirting with another night. We might change it. We'll keep everybody updated on Twitter. Then also just kind of with all the Bearcat seasons ending, with the two main ones, I should say, not all of them. We love all Bearcat sports, but with football and basketball kind of wrapping up, we're going to transition a little bit more to just kind of sports in general. And, we're still going to focus on the Bearcats as a Bearcat podcast, but we're going to open it up a little bit, talk about some other stuff as well. So that'll be fun.
Any suggestions for content too, fans? Anything you think that we would do well or lighten up the show, let us know.
Yeah. Whatever you want, like Nick Statterman to talk about, let us know. We can just let him rant. Or Joe Matt, one or the other. We can let him get after it. But I think this is all we have for tonight. Joseph Rant Metzger. This is all we have for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. And we will see you next week for another episode of the Rock of Truth podcast. Go Cats.
See ya.